All right, Colts Nation, we are back with my first ever guest on this channel here. So congratulations. This is my brother, my buddy. Damn, I'm losing it right now. Trevor Boulay. That's what they call you, right?
That is indeed, my friend.
How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm ready for another season of Colts football. I'm ready to talk a little defense and really ready to kind of give you a couple of spicy takes, you know?
Oh, that's why I have you here. So as you all know, you clicked here because you want to hear finally about the Colts defense. All we're doing is talking about the offense. So much talk about Anthony Richardson, and for good reason. I'm not trying to dismiss it, Trevor, but I do feel we got to be fair to the defensive side of the ball. I mean, the fantasy football era in many ways has really done a disservice to these boys, if you ask me. So as you see by the title, Julius Brents will be talking about. We're probably going to hit on some of the other rookies as well, some players to keep an eye on in the defense as we slowly creep towards training camp. Positional battles, perhaps even some way too early expectations for this defense, and maybe just a little bit more. But before we do, for those of you who haven't been here, welcome. You're listening to the Riding the Bench Colts cast. My name is Justin. I do ask one favor of you. If at any point during this you're enjoying it, go ahead and just shoot it a like. It helps the channel grow, helps me get out to as many people as humanly possible. And if you want to be here watching me when I'm 80 years old on my recliner talking about Colts football, you can go ahead and subscribe to be a part of that journey. But most importantly, just enjoy the episode. That's why we're here. We just want to bring some content for the fans of the Colts to enjoy. So now let's get into it, now that the intro's out of the way. So Trevor, obviously, as we come into this season, I feel like one of the biggest moves we made on the defensive side of the ball, unfortunately, was like a negative, right? It was trading away Stephon Gilmore. Good for him. I feel like maybe as an organization, we're in a different place than he is as a player. So then we go ahead and we draft Julius Brents, right? But with the secondary having been up and down last year, do you think the pick of Julius Brents is enough to keep this secondary afloat? And if not, what are you thinking? I mean, the room is pretty thin, right?
Yeah, the room's pretty thin. I'd say that I don't think just Juju Brents alone is enough, right? We also drafted another cornerback. We're on the market. We're developing Dallas Flowers. We got Isaiah. I think alone, he's not enough. He's going to be another cornerback, but just one guy isn't going to change the room. But I think with the youth we have, I think, they're going to grow into their role throughout the season. We have Gus Bradley for another year. So I feel pretty good about us really starting to hit our stride mid to late stretch, which is when you want to do it, honestly.
Now, I would agree with that. So when you look at the guys, for me, I'd imagine the 3 day one starters that we're going to be looking at are Isaiah Rodgers, Kenny Moore, and Julius Brents, right? Now, we drafted the kid Darius Rush as well. Other than him, I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm not – obviously, Dallas Flowers really gave us good work as a return man last year. I'm not really super familiar with the rest of the corner room. Is there anyone that you feel like maybe needs to step up? Is there anyone that you're looking for on that front?
Yeah, I think our other rookie, Jalen Jones, I think he was a 7th rounder for us, if not a 6th. He's 6'2", same overall athletic ability, right? That's what we drafted this year. We drafted a lot of athletes, not pure refined players, but athletes. So I'm expecting him to step up and become a clamp player. I want him to get into it. I just want him to get on the field, get out there and start being physical. Cause that's where I think our draft is truly going to shine, in our physicality.
Right. And I thought that was very interesting by us this year. Now, Ballard and company have shown a trend of going for these athletic guys with traits that maybe the production wasn't completely there, but overall, when you look at their skill sets, really could develop into something special. And I feel like that has been hit or miss in terms of how they've translated into the on-the-field product, right? And our quarterback, I had to mention Anthony Richardson at some point, right? I'm sorry, everybody. I misled you. But regardless, he was the epitome of that trend, right? At the number 4 pick, drafting tools over production. Yep. But I feel like even with that, we have drafted production at certain parts in other drafts. I feel like this is the first year where we just went all the way, traits and tools all the way through. It was like full MBA, drafting off of potential and not what they've done. I think that there's a pretty good chance I mean, it's really going to go one of two ways. This is either going to change the way teams draft in a positive way, or it's going to be a lesson learned for the rest of the league, right? And one that we had to take on the chin. So
yeah, I think it's Chris just taking his, a dart throw. Everyone put him on the hot seat, right? Everyone's saying that this could be his last year. So I think he decided to leave a stamp of a year, if you will, right? He said, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out on my terms.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And one of the guys that he drafted, and I wasn't super familiar with him prior to the draft per se, but as I've started to watch a bit more of him after the draft, someone I'm really, really starting to like that we drafted is, you could try to pronounce his first name if you'd like, but I'll save us both the trouble by saying Adebawore, right? This is someone right here. You want to talk about tools? This guy is nearly 300 pounds, running a 4.47 40. For those of you who were wondering, Anthony Richardson, the biggest freak of nature we've ever seen at quarterback, ran a 4.43. So this kid right here is the type of guy that if he hits, he is going to hit, right? Now, we have some dogs on the defensive line, Trevor, right? We got Buckner, Grover Stewart, right? Kwity Paye, Dion Dangbo. And then we have, the Taekwon Lewis's of the world and some of those depth pieces. Is Adebawore someone that you could – that was not bad pronunciation. I'll live with that.
No,
is he the – thank you. I appreciate that. Is he the type of guy that you expect to make an impact on the defense this year? Or do you think that maybe we're just excited by the fact that we drafted him and there's really not much of a role for him early on?
No, I think he's going to make an impact this year. On our depth chart, he's listed as a DE, but of course we drafted him as a DT. I think one of the things we found out last year is if we didn't have Grove or if we didn't have Buck, we were really in a hole. This man, like you said, is huge. 300 pounds, runs a 4.7. He's going to be a stuffer, right? The way we attack the run, hitting the A and the B gaps, that's what this guy can do based on size alone. Like, he may not have finesse, but we need someone to hold up the line for our edge rushers, our guys that we're starting to really invest money and time into to get there. So I think he will have a role, a very big role at the defensive tackle spot.
Man, I hope so, because he's the type of guy that could make some noise. I mean, even if it was just in like a situation where it was just like punt block type situation or against a field goal, even just in that situation, maybe he's the type of guy that could slip in. I mean, that speed, to be 100% honest with you, is like literally what nightmares are made of. It's absolutely horrifying for someone at that size to be able to move like that. And I'm curious to see kind of I'm going to be looking for his name as we get closer to training camp and we start talking about some of these guys a little bit more. But for now, it is all speculation. As we prepare to get to that point, are there any players, Mr. Boulay, that you are keeping an eye on as we go into training camp on the defensive side of the ball? Maybe even a position as a whole, a battle or something like that? Is there anything that you're looking out for?
Yeah, I'll start with players that I have my eye on, and then I'll talk about a position battle that I think we're going to see, and I think we're going to see throughout the season. I don't think we'll see it in camp, but I think throughout the season it's going to change this way. So first, Ebukam, our signer from the 49ers, listed as a linebacker, but we've talked about it. He's one of those guys who's a pseudo defensive end, right? Not quite big enough to put his hand in the dirt. However, the speed and the drive to get to the quarterback is what he's about. Now, that's who I'm keeping my eye on. We spent a decent bit of money on him. It was kind of our first splash signing, and people were a little confused because it felt like maybe unnecessary with Deo and Kwity, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how he does throughout camp and adjust to our system, especially with Buck on the team. Now, position battles. Here's where I think we're going to see something a little crazy. So right. Kenny Moore was hurt and had a down year last year, right? So Kenny kind of stopped playing nickel because of injuries, right? He's off the field. And we saw Julian Blackmon slide into the nickel slot. Now, Julian is a safety, and he's an excellent safety too. However, the way he filled the gap that Kenny Moore has when he was off the field is exceptional. It showed that, to me, I'd rather play Nick Cross and Rodney Thomas out there because they did well. Nick Cross is young, but he'll learn. And, sub Julian Blackmon out there as need be and start putting Julian Blackmon and Kenny Moore interchangeably. I think Julian's going to find success in like this weird pseudo cornerback / safety role. That's where I'd like to see him throughout the year. And that's where I think we're going to see him.
Now that right there is That's an interesting take. So you're saying Kenny Moore, are you surprised that Kenny Moore is still on the roster?
Yes, I am. I did think we are going to find a home for him, but I think the proof that we kept him when we let other guys like Paris Campbell-1 leave, like other guys who we loved leave, I think that just proves that Ballard and Gus do believe in him.
That is fair enough. I'll tell you where I'm going to be keeping my eye on during this training camp. It is about time, and I think both showed flashes, but Kwity Paye and Dayon Dangbo, this is the year. I mean, when you let Yannick Ngakoue walk, which I didn't hate it. I understood it, right?
Yep.
These are two guys that we need to step up in a big way this year. And I know we got Ibukam, we signed him, and then we were just talking about Adebawore. Lord, one day I'll get it, Trevor. One day I'll get it.
The announcers are going to struggle too.
Right? But this is, in Kwity Paye, this is a first-round pick. Mm-hmm. And then in Dayon Dangbo, this is a second-round pick, if not a first-rounder. And we have a guy like Robert Mathis coaching these boys up. These two, for me, if one of them is not making noise in training camp, I can't lie to you right now, I'm going to be a little bit worried about this defense for that and a couple of other reasons, right?
Yep.
So when you look at how we performed last year, I think when you look at it by the numbers, I don't have it in front of my face, mostly because the numbers are embarrassing, so I'm going to leave them alone. But the numbers were not good defensively last year. But I feel, and maybe you feel this way as well, that watching it didn't feel quite that way, right? It didn't look like an awful defense. It looked more like a demoralized defense. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll talk about the numbers a little bit because I am a numbers guy. So we had, we finished 4-12-1. We still had 21 turnovers, and our season goal is always 40. So we were over halfway there, and we lost most of our games. We lost 12 games, and we were halfway there. We had 44 sacks. That's pretty solid. Of course, Yannick had 9 of those? So there goes 9 of them.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Like, this was a defense that went hard early on. As a whole, fantasy football-wise, 11th scoring defense, we were right around 10-11 on everything. We only let up 4.1 yards per carry. This is a good defense that had to continuously bail out Matt Ryan and then eventually just said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And I think it's exactly like that. I think Kwity and Day are going to step up, and I think we're going to have a great defensive year.
Well, I love the positivity, Trevor. That is what I try to promote over here. I mean, I'm banking on one of them to step up for sure. One concern I do have, if I'm to be completely objective here, is obviously I mentioned at the top of the episode, in fact, it might have even been the first question I asked, but I want to come back to it. When you talk about the departure of Stephon Gilmore in a secondary that was already up and down, and now we bring in Julius Brents, right? We all like that pick a lot for multiple reasons. Not just, obviously, he's the prototypical Gus Bradley type of corner, right? When you look back to the Legion of Boom, guys like Brandon Browner and Richard Sherman, they were built in this mold. He's 6'3", 210 pounds, long arms, great ball skills, all this type of stuff, right? We like the pick from that perspective. But then I also mentioned the fact that the corner room is thin, and Gilly made so many plays for us last year, Trevor. If Julius Brents, Juju, as you and many others are calling him, maybe was that his college nickname? Am I behind on that?
Yeah,
one?
It was.
Okay, that's fine. So Juju Brents, if that's what he likes to be called, I'll happily call him that. If he has a slow start, what are we going to see here from this secondary? Because, I mean, we have unproven talent all over the place in the secondary. We mentioned the corner room before, but even the safeties, especially, let's say, push back on you a little bit for your idea of Blackman coming down into the nickel corner position a little bit more. I mean, what are we really dealing with at safety? I like Rodney Thomas. He gave us great work, but can we really trust that right now as it currently stands? Obviously, as we get closer to the season's fine. I love Nick Cross when we drafted him. But Rodney Thomas, Nick Cross, Julian Blackman, and then no one. I mean, Daniel Scott. I don't want to sit here and bring the negativity on, Trevor, but it does feel like we have a chance to see some struggles here in the secondary, do we not?
Yeah, we're young. I think Luke Rhodes, our long snapper, is our oldest player at like 33, 34. So we're young. That's the truth about us. When we're going to feel that. The first 4 games, we're going to feel that. If we lose our first one, I wouldn't be surprised. It's what we do since 2013, right? We lose it or we tie it once. So
that was unbelievable, by the
it
way,
was.
Lester.
At least we didn't lose, but
Right.
we're going to struggle early. I think that if Juju really can't pick his stride up, I think you're going to see Dallas Flowers start. And yeah, this is a guy who is on the return team. That's where he made his name. But that's how Isaiah made his name, right? And now Isaiah is shaping up into a solid corner. So, God, yeah, we're going to struggle early. But we have the schedule to struggle early. We're playing some terrible divisions, like that's what's going to help us.
Absolutely. So now when we look at last year, again, you mentioned some of the numbers were good, but there were some things that weren't great. You said the scoring defense was top 15?
Yeah. If you look at ESPN, I mean, that's just aggregating everything, right? We're 11th in terms of our defense, like fantasy defense. So we average, I think, 6.2 points, 6.1. And the way that
we're talking fantasy football.
We're talking fantasy, all right?
I didn't realize we're talking defense special teams unit. I didn't realize. I thought
Hey, look, DST, it matters, man. But look, still, even if you look on like the NFL stats, we're sitting right at 11. So we'd have games, where we'd hold someone to 17, and we'd have games where someone put 54 points on us. And that's just the nature of the beast with our age, like you say. Like, old players can only do so much. The youth has to step up.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I just, sometimes, and we've spoken about this in the past, my brother, sometimes, I'm usually more on board for letting people go than I feel like you are. I feel like more often when I'm talking to you, you're kind of like, dude, we had to keep that guy. We had to keep that guy. For me this year, one that I really thought, why did we let him go, was Rodney McLeod. He was so good for us last year. Yep. He's not ancient. And listen, we could have always just cut him come the season if things were working our way. But the fact that I feel like we've backed ourselves into a bit of a corner at no pun intended, really, in the secondary by not having him around, for me, does have me a little bit worried. It's not to say I'm not optimistic about some of these guys. There's a lot of people that are very, very high on Darius Rush. Obviously, he's playing corner, but, Rodney McLeod for me was one that I really wish we had kept around.
No, I feel the same way. I think that has been Ballard's biggest problem, right? So we let go of Rodney McLeod for a cheap deal. We let go of Danico Autry for a cheap deal. And I'll say it. We let go of Bobby Okereke for a cheap deal. I will say it here and I'll say it now. He's excellent, and that's been Ballard's biggest problem. We let some Colts go that we need to keep. And it's tough, right? We're not there. I'm not the GM. You're not the GM. But we do let go of some guys who we sit back later in the season and are like, man, we could use that veteran talent right now. We could use a guy who knows the system,
That's fair. That's fair. So we're now approaching, Trevor, the end of the episode. And I'm going to push this over to you a little bit right now. Way too early expectations for this defense this season. What are you looking for out of this defense this year?
I'm looking for 40 turnovers. It's our goal. I want to see it. I think we have the guy. If Shaq plays, we have a team that can do 40 turnovers. If we went 4-12-1 and we had 21 of them, I'm pretty sure if we have a good year, we can have 40. That's what I want to see. Those are my expectations, 40 turnovers.
Well, hopefully we can meet that. You guys, you heard it here first. 40 turnovers for the Indianapolis Colts this year. With that, that's just about everything I felt like. Well, it's everything I'm prepared to cover, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you. So with that, let's wrap it up. Congratulations. You made it through another episode of the Riding the Bench Colts cast. If you're still here, you couldn't have hated it that much, right? So this is where you shoot the like, maybe subscribe if you feel so inclined. And if you've already done both of those things and you're looking for another way to help me out over here, if you would just share this with one other person that likes the Colts as much as me, as much as Trevor, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, I understand how big of an ask that is because, for you to just go up to your friend, right? You guys are having a couple beers trying to watch the game and you're talking about some, small little Colts podcast like this. I understand, right? But, if you do that, I'd be grateful. I'd owe you one. Until next time, that was it. My name's Justin. This is the Riding the Bench Colts cast.